My guest today has one of the most remarkable stories. It's something that we can all connect to. It's so human and so vulnerable. Imagine going through life thinking that your voice does not matter, that your role is meant to be in the shadows, that you don't actually have anything to share, nothing that would add value. But because of your transformation, because of going to Vipassana meditation, my guest today, Bryant, realized that that belief of sitting in the shadows, that was something that was given to him. That was conditioned because of the environment that he grew up in, where he had to, as a child, play the role of an adult. And it was through the Vipassana meditation, sitting in silence for 10 days, where he confronted the patterns of guilt, of shame, and that restlessness that has been driving him. And it was there he discovered his value, his purpose, his voice, and his ability to now be someone who can break free from performative success and understand why resilience must be designed collectively rather than individually. And someone who has become a successful performance architect and coach to help leaders and founders who build careers and businesses that last, not by pushing harder, but by aligning to who they are and finding that internal voice. Brian's story is so beautiful and it captures so many raw elements of what it means to be human in a world that is just innately harsh and broken. And his work has been so beautiful. And I can't wait for you to listen to his journey, his transformation, and see within yourself that's possible to reframe your perspective and see that you have a voice to share as well. Welcome to Reframing Perspectives, the podcast where we challenge traditional thinking and explore the power of empathy in conscious leadership, personal growth, and human connection. I'm Dr. Payal Beri, and in each episode, we dive into thought-provoking conversations that expand perspectives and spark transformation. Because empathy reframes perspectives. Let's begin. Bryant, welcome to Reframing Perspectives. I'm so excited to talk to you today. You've had such an interesting journey and something that I think a lot of people can actually relate to right now, where there's a lot of burnout happening and there's a lot of external stimulation and overstimulation of what it means to be successful, what it means to be able to perform. I want to know, who was Bryant prior to you discovering and understanding the power of resilience, your journey with Vipassana? Who were you before you even entered and opened this world?
Thank you. Well, first, thank you for having me here. I'm glad to be here to speak with you. I would say it's been a journey. I'll put it to you like that. Before the retreats, before the mindfulness, before the high performance, I was generally speaking a very introverted, quiet kid. I probably didn't talk much until I was probably about 22, 23. Now it's because I had to go out into the real world and actually start to learn how to advocate for myself. But I was always an observer, if anything. I would listen more than I would talk. And that's because I just was shy, but I was also just very, very introverted. So I spent more time just observing people, their reactions, how they engage with their environment, how they engage with themselves, how they talk about themselves. And, throughout that experience, that's just how I learned for the most part. I just learned from seeing people do everything wrong or right and just taking bits and pieces and trying to carve out my own path that way. I would say before any of this, I've just always been somebody who's just very observant of people's experiences, the way that people engage with others, the way that people choose to engage with the world. And in that, that's where I was able to figure out my own path and who I wanted to be and how I wanted to move in the world.
I always find that introverts tend to be the observers of the world. There was some research that came out that said that introverts actually make some of the best therapists, clinical therapists. I'm an extrovert. I stopped being a therapist a long time ago. How did that observation, recognizing all of these things, what was your journey where you went from you're moving around quietly? What
Mhm.
made you want to step in and actually show other people how you can use your power and you can use your these skills of observation, these skills of how to move around and navigate for the power of good, a power of humanity?
it's like when you stay quiet for so long and then you just start talking, people are just like, I wasn't expecting that from you. Like, it's just because it's just like people just weren't, when I did talk, I had very little words because I had trouble articulating myself a lot growing up, my emotions, what I needed, how to really advocate for myself. But when I would take enough time to observe and then actually share my perspective or share how I'm feeling about something, it would be very sharp. Not in that it would be aggressive, but it would just be like, this is how I feel. And if he'd be like, wow, like that's, I didn't see it from that perspective, or I'm glad that you finally shared that. And then oftentimes, like, I think that I saw myself as somebody who myself, or just my perception of self at the time was just, I just need to be somebody that's just behind the scenes. I don't really want to be seen.
Mm.
I just want to kind of be the orchestrator in the background. And people would always say that, hey, like this is mentors, colleagues, just friends. They would say, you need to bring that to the forefront a little bit more, or we want to see you in front of people. And then I would have instances, I would be speaking in front of people, I would be leading different things, and people would be like, we want to see that more of you. So it's just, it was really just my environment, people around me, the people that cared about me telling me that you need to speak more because when you speak, people listen. On top of that, it's just that that's the world that we're in. Like just making that transition out of undergrad into corporate America, you can't really hide. If you really want to carve out your path, like it's just that's just kind of the nature of the world, what is the world that we live in. Like you have to learn how to advocate for yourself. You have to learn how to move through different rooms, especially that identity of being a black person, being a black man. Like it's just like you have to, and the thing about me being quiet because of the way, because of my identity or the different identities that I have to be more cautious in how I walk in rooms and how I make people feel. So it's just like I have to be the one that's a little bit more aggressive in opening that door, or you feel like you have to be that a lot of time. I have to be a little bit more accommodating, like because if I'm standing off in the corner, people are oftentimes like, "Oh, it's standoffish." Like I don't know if you really want to engage with anybody, like, but it's less likely that people would come and speak with me. So it was that reality, but also just that positive reinforcement of people that did care about me saying that I need to step in a little bit more. You have something to say. You have a very unique experience that I think would other people would find value in.
You say that, like, that really just stayed with me, where you just said that because you didn't know how to process your feelings and emotions, and you were really quiet and you didn't know exactly how to express yourself, that you decided that the narrative that you were going to hold about yourself was that you're meant to be in the shadows, that you're meant to be the person who is behind the scenes and not the one there. And I find that so fascinating because so much of what we identify ourselves as or how we perceive ourselves comes from this place of like deep criticism, or we look at our weaknesses and we decide that is going to be the benchmark that I set
Uh,
myself to, that
uh,
whatever it is that I struggle with, well, now I am going to settle and be that version of self, versus realizing that that version of me is hiding because I'm not seeing myself for what I'm worth. I'm so curious to, how did you, when you were building that perception, or when you said to yourself, well, I'm meant to be in the shadows and I'm meant to be here, because it was so hard for you to articulate that, what did that feel like for you? Did you in that moment
uh,
accept it? Did you feel like, yep, I fully embrace that identity? Or was there always some form of conflict that, like, I want to be there, but I'm supposed to be here?
it was It was a lot of stuff that I just held on to from my childhood, whether it be traumatic stuff, my parents. Like I used to just carry so much because I wasn't saying how I felt about things, nor did I feel like emotion was something that was useful. I was just like, this is something that's going to slow me down. So you feel like it's just kind of like I get it. Like you did what you did, like especially with my relationship with my parents, like oftentimes when I was growing up, it felt like I was managing two children. So it wasn't enough space for me to actually have an emotion or feel a type of way about somebody because it's just like they're divorced, they don't have the best relationship, they're going through whatever they're going through, they're human. Like I didn't have that whole like I noticed that because a lot of my friends after undergrad, they were like, "Oh, like I'm back at home with my parents," and I realized like their relationship was rough. And in my head, with growing up, I thought they had the perfect relationship. It's like I realized that when I was young, and I had to kind of marry, I had to I felt that I had to be the manager of everybody else's emotions. So what happens is that everything just becomes very logical. You function out of a place of survival, not realizing that you're carrying so many emotions, so much resentment, so much pain, so much anger. And that's the thing that's actually driving you. And after a while, it gets heavy because you start to notice patterns in your behaviors. Like I started to talk more. I started to take on more leadership in all domains of my life. But I noticed that I would have these weeks in which I was like really, really, at weeks at a time, I was like really, really sad and I really couldn't explain. And I was like, am I bipolar? Like, I'm just very sad. Like, it's just despair. Like, it's just a sense of hopelessness that I carry. And then from there, you, s- when I started to get into therapy around like 25 or something like that's when I was actually I was started to understand how much stuff that I was carrying and how much stuff I needed to let go. And that is the thing that started my journey of my own personal transformation because I just took a genuine interest in what was this pattern of behavior that I had that was hurting me in relationships, this fluctuation of emotions that I was always having where I'll be really happy, then I'll be really sad, and also just how I was isolating myself so much. And I was just on this road of just logic. Like I thought that I didn't feel much. Like everything, it was just never enough. I was just pushing and pushing and pushing, just trying to say, when I get here, this will make me happy. Or when I get this will make me happy. It was just this, I was torturing myself. That's what it felt like. And I just saw it just goes back to that thing of seeing emotion as this useless thing that slows you down or this weakness that you have, and I just didn't want to acknowledge it, and I hadn't been acknowledging it for years. So ultimately, like I just took a level of curiosity and where I was at, the pattern in my behavior that was hurting me and everybody else around me, but also just the physical weight that I felt that I was carrying for much of my life of everybody else's shit, basically. Like it was just I was carrying everybody else's shit, including my own, and not talking about it and acting like everything was okay. So it was a very rough journey. And when you just have this voice in your head, when you have that sense of, I guess, of unworthiness or worthlessness, no matter what you do, it's like I got to get help. I need help. I can't continue to walk around like this.
Well, to say that emotions are going to slow me down and I don't have space for this and I function out of practicality because it's survival. Would you say then that those individuals who tend to lean and say, I'm just a very pragmatic person, I'm a very practical person, is that a window for us to see that, there may be some blocks there that they are just unwilling to express?
Hi, so I'm pausing the episode for a quick moment and for a quick favor. If you haven't already, if you could just click subscribe, leave a review wherever you're listening to this episode, it would be really helpful. The only way we can know to make sure that we provide the right type of podcast episodes, the right type of guests, and to make sure that we're delivering the type of content that you actually want to hear, it's through your reviews and through your support. Thanks. And now back to the episode.
Yes, that's a really good question. Thank you. I like the way you put that together. Yes, like because it, what I had to learn is that it's okay to be a practical and logical person. It matters more so your relationship to it. Is it out of like just control or feeling like you have a sense of control or survival? That's just your default. Or is it something that you have a skillful relation with and like you know when to use it, you know when it's helpful, but also you know that you have emotions too. So are you verbalizing those as well? Like when something doesn't feel good or you feel like you've been or you're frustrated or you're experiencing joy, are you just living in that too, along with the practicality? It's not to say that both these things can exist together. You can be practical, but also a very joyous person. And that's okay. So I would say to your question, yes, there's usually some blocks there if you're just always saying, "I'm a type A person," or I think that was the latest one that I've heard. "I'm very, very type A. I'm very, very type A." And it's just like, it's not even a real thing. Like, it's just like you if you're saying you're a type A person, I get curious, is like, well, how do you define type A? What does that actually mean? How does that play out? And then usually when people say that, it's usually a form of control, of trying to control everything, trying to always be the problem solver. Because even though I don't have the typical type A personality, I'm an introvert. I would say that previously I was introverted type A, and that you would never see me sweat. You would never see me. You would think that I was okay, but I was going crazy inside because I'm trying to control so many different things at once. So ultimately, when we put these labels on ourselves, it's more so our relationship to it, because I think that when we say that I'm just type A, this is just what it is, there's probably some blocks there. There's probably some stuff that you're just functioning out of survival with. There's some, it's some insecurities there, and that's okay. It's okay to just get curious about, well, what does that actually mean to me? Is it helping me? What am I gaining from it? What is it costing me? Like, all these questions can come up because it's okay. Like, we change as people. And sometimes being that version of practicality, type A, introverted, extroverted, might have been of service to you at that time, but you're a different person in a different season. So it's okay to say that maybe I need to shift a little bit to maybe a little bit more introversion, or maybe a little bit more extroversion, or know when you need to actually use it in a way that is in service to you or the people around you. So yeah, to put it simply, there's probably some blocks there with people if they're just saying, I'm just this one thing. Yes, for sure.
Absolutely. I see this going around on social media about the more I heal myself, the less I care to climb the corporate ladder, to have that burning ambition. And I see this a lot with entrepreneurs and with change makers, social impact individuals, where so much of what is leading them and motivating them to do the work that they do and reach the unicorn level, billionaire status, or sell a company or create some kind of social justice movement that they had this burning desire from, usually comes from a place of unhealed emotional trauma. And in fact, one of our other podcast guests that I had, Amina Altai, wrote a book called The Ambition Trap. And she talks deeply about that, about how you motivate yourself from a place of unhealed wound, as well as what happens when you actually motivate yourself from a healed space, where then you can have that relationship to practicality, that
Uh-huh.
realism that I desire for these big things, and I recognize the reality of what it would take for me to get there, you know? And I
Yeah.
think that relationship that you just talked about is really key.
Yeah, just it's a lot of middle ground here as we grow, as we change, or complex people. And, I just find that the people I work with today, myself, it's so hard to move out of a place of doing and just always doing, because that's where I was at, just always doing. What's the next pursuit? What's the next ambition? What's the next goal? To just being, because it's so much going on in this present moment that you're probably missing out on lessons, new understanding, new ways of being, because you're so focused on what's next. And we're always focused on what's next, or we're always, like you said, the ambition trap or the success trap. Well, this person over here has already done this before. So that needs to be my next goal, or that needs to be my next ambition, or that's where I need to be. It's always just this comparing mind going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So you went from being in this state of not being able to understand your emotional response, thinking that you're supposed to be in the backside and nobody necessarily needs to hear from you about what you have to share and express. And then you went to Vipassana. And I'd love for you to share exactly what Vipassana is.
True.
But you went to Vipassana and you went into this 10-day meditation. What happened when you were there?
Oof, man. Ooh, possibly. I still get goosebumps from my first retreat. I guess for context, everything that I've said up to this point probably led me to Vipassana. You just get tired of talk therapy is great. I've been in it. It works to a certain point for me specifically. And it's just like I'm now I reached a point to where I didn't realize it at the time, but I was just theorizing about my emotions. I knew how to talk about my emotions in a way to where they were very these theoretical concepts, right? Like I wasn't feeling anything.
You were intellectualizing it.
Exactly. A lot of just intellectualizing my emotions. This was something that was a challenge for me. And I had went through some really like traumatic stuff with my parents that brought me back to a younger version of me, the unhealed version of me. I'm thinking that I'm on this path. I'm healed. I'm in therapy. I'm doing the work. Like I'm doing everything that I need to do. Relationship with parents is going well. And this was 2021 when I moved back to Chicago, and I was still on this ambition track. I was like, moving back to Chicago. I'm going to go ahead and get my family back together because my parents are divorced. My sister and I had a decent relationship. I have a nephew. He was like 2 or 3 at the time. And I was like, I'm gonna bring the family back together. That's my responsibility. That's my next thing that I need to do. Like, we need to get on this real estate. We need to be community. We need to talk about group economics. Like, because I had learned so much, like just through my career up to that point. So I was like, we all need to just get into real estate. And in that process, it was an admirable thing to do, maybe. But there came this moment to where both my parents just stopped talking to my sister and I. And it was no real reason why, but they just both cut us off for like a year. And that put me back in such a, like that 12-year-old self when they got divorced, like a lot of emotion. It felt like that abandonment. It felt like that immaturity that they had because they weren't explaining like why they weren't talking to us. They just decided like, we're having a disagreement. We don't like this thing going on. Don't talk to us. Like my mom, cold turkey, just disappeared. My dad, he's always been avoided. So it's just kind of like he disappeared as well. So that led me to just all these emotions. And I was like, I'm going to go to church. Maybe I'll try that, try to pray the pain away. And that didn't work. Got another therapist. It wasn't really challenging me. And it's a shame that I was using therapy as a way to just challenge myself to try to get through these emotions, but it wasn't helping me. So then I just started to meditate. I was just like, you know what? This is what people say. It works. If people say it works, okay, let's do it. So I started to meditate, and it started off with just the 5-minute calm map meditation videos on YouTube. Like I was like, okay, Tamara Levitt. Okay, I like what's going on here. This is cool. And then from there, I just started doing it more consistently. Nothing was really open. This was 2021. So, a year after, well, the pandemic was still going on, but, online communities. And then ultimately, like at the end of the year, I decided that I wanted to really dive into meditation a little bit more. And so I went on to explore some retreats. I was like, let me just see what's going on. And that's when I found Spirit Rock Meditation Center in California, Vipassana. Didn't know much about it. When I looked it up, I was just like, oh, like I'm a little bit more introverted. So 10 days of silence, nothing. That's nothing to me. But Vipassana essentially it's a form of insight meditation to where you just notice sensations, thoughts, emotions that come up non-judgmentally. And on Vipassana retreats, you are there to not read. You can't reflect. You can't read. You can't write. There's no talking for 10 days. And so I was like, this is right up my alley, like just to get away from people and not talk to people and just be on my own. And when I got there, the funny thing is that people were just like, is this what number retreat is this for you? I was just like, this is my first. It was just like, you started off with 10 days as your first. I'm like, yeah, like, I was like, oh, you're brave. Okay. So I wasn't worried, but I also was like, okay, this is going to be something. So when it came to the retreat, probably one of the most enlightening experiences that I've ever had, mainly because it was the first time I couldn't run from my emotions. I couldn't run from my thoughts. I couldn't run from all the stuff that I had been carrying. It gave me a chance to feel a lot more. And it was stuff I didn't want to feel. I felt a lot of anger. It was a lot of shame. It was just a lot of, it's just one thing to think about the things that you might be carrying. It's another thing just to feel how they're weighing you down in all domains of your life. And at some point, the way the Vipassana works is that you have to just decide to let it go. And you see that you have so much choice in the matter. because you notice that around day 3, okay, I'm having the same thoughts every day, over and over and over again. I'm having these same thoughts, these same regrets, these same fears, these same ups and downs that come along with it in silence. And only I can deal with it. And I know what I need to do. Like the answers, everything that you're looking for becomes so vivid. Like you got to let this go. Like you carrying it. And you don't get it right on the first time, the second time, third time. It's a gradual process. But just in that retreat, when you're just able to feel, when you're able to listen, when you're able to move out of this thinking mind into just feeling these other senses that you didn't even know that you had before, it just changes. Everything becomes so much clearer. Like you walk differently, you see choice differently, you stop using the word should so much in your life. You take control because you see that, yeah, it's a lot that I can't control, but I have so much choice in the matter as far as like how my relationship to this emotion that I have, this thing that I'm going through right now, I still have choice in how I respond. And how you respond, the agreements that you make with yourself every day, all of those things became so much more vivid for me. Like if I choose to wake up every morning and be mad or sad about something, that's a choice in itself. And that takes away my power, right? It's like if I say the day is going to be bad, then the day is going to be bad. But ultimately, like Vipassana is something that I do on a I do it every year. I'm doing it in December this year as well. Every time I go, whatever thing that I've been avoiding, I have to confront it. I have to take the time to decide, what do I want to do with this? And then therapy becomes a lot more helpful because then it's like, I felt this thing. I want to actually talk through. I want to process it with you. So Vipassana it's just one of the most enlightening experiences that I had because I was able to see myself. Like I was able to see that young Bryant, the different versions of Bryant. Like it's a very surreal experience. Like it's just that you see all these different versions of you, and then you're able to it. It's a lot that goes on. Like as you can see, like I'm talking a lot about it because I get really excited about it. But I literally was able to tell my younger self that it was okay. And it was one of those moments where I was like, okay, I can let this go. It's so much there, but it's a healing experience. It is very healing. Self-knowledge, self-compassion.
Everything that you just shared is, I think, something that we all could deeply benefit from. But we live in this world where we're running and running and running, like you mentioned,
Uh,
before you and what you were doing before you went to Vipassana.
uh,
And as you mentioned, it's like we have a choice with how we want to engage in the emotional response we have. But there will be people who say that, okay, well, you go. And there will be people who go to those, they feel enlightened, they have this shift, and 3 months later, they're back to how they were. They're back to that same practice. They're back to allowing these external factors to impact. There will be individuals who say, yeah, but we live in a society where we have to engage. There are going to be moments where someone has crossed a boundary with me, someone has upset me. So am I not allowed to be upset? Am I not allowed to experience, that and respond to that person? How do you engage with those kinds of thought processes?
Specifically around like just the practice or just how to take what
Just
you.
the objection that individuals have around, well, that's great that you went to Vipassana and these things happen. And yes, absolutely in the moment. But how do you engage with it when you're having to live amongst everyone? Because healing happens in community. When we go off on our own and we isolate, we understand our relationship to what is going on. But then when we come back into
Uh,
community, there will be moments where individuals will say something, will upset you,
uh,
there'll be a reaction. How do you, in those moments, continue to carry what you took from Vipassana to carry you into those relationships in society?
I would say the first thing is that just understand that this is a lifelong practice. Like it's It's not that you go to Vipassana and then you're automatically enlightenment is it's a journey. Like, I'm not saying that I wasn't enlightened after those retreats. The way that my instructors described enlightenment, it's a lifelong thing. Like, it just doesn't happen after 4 retreats, 5 retreats. Like, it's just something that is an ever evolving journey. And so, to answer your question, I would say that just understanding the practice is lifelong. And that, yes, you have to meditate at home. You have to keep your practice up afterwards. Is literally like a muscle. Because what I find is that, when I'm talking to somebody, I feel myself I'm being mindful in that conversation. I'm observing myself talking, but also observing the other person talking, their nonverbals. I'm noticing if I'm sweating or something like that, I'm able to say, I might be a little bit nervous right now, or I'm anxious, or I'm excited. Like, being able to notice those things, that is a practice in itself. And I would say that practicing meditation every day. The second thing that I would say is how you engage with the outer world is just understanding that like you said, community is so important. So my relationships that I develop at those retreats don't just stop at those retreats. It's like, okay, where do you live at? What do you do? Like, let's check in. Like, being able to be involved in these communities is especially important because they're those individuals are going to carry you through. And even being on a silent meditation retreat with 99 other people, even though we're not saying anything to each other, we feel each other. We feel what somebody might be going through. And we're able to just being in there. It's a lesson in just kind of just being in the presence of other people who are doing the same work that you're doing. You'll receive some type of healing, some type of understanding, some type of self-knowledge. So being involved in those groups, being around these people, it's simple enough. That is a part of the practice. So you can deal with people that might not be as deep into the practice, but you're also able to get another perspective. And I think it just all comes back to choice. Like, this practice just helps you see a situation, a challenge from so many different perspectives. Like, you're able to get out of just habitual ways of being. It's as simple as a customer is dissatisfied with the product or service that you provide. It's like your immediate reaction is just to say, "Well, no, I have the best product, service, or whatever." That's how I used to be. I have the best. Like, what did you mean? Like, I'm really good at this. Like, you can't tell me anything about this. You don't know. Maybe you just aren't a good fit. And it's just simply shifting to like, well, tell me more. Like, what was your experience? Like, what went well? What could have been done better? It sounds like a feedback form, but it's just curiosity. Like, you're able to just, instead of just reacting, you're able to say, I wonder why that person acted out in that way. Maybe I should ask them,
Mm.
right? I wonder why that person is having challenges with communicating like that, like in a way that I can understand. Maybe I should ask them how they communicate, or what's the best way in which they communicate. That in itself gives you a peace of mind because you're not assuming. You're not assuming a person is acting out to hurt you personally, and you just stop taking things personally. Or everything doesn't have so much weight. Every decision doesn't have to be, oh, this is going to be the end all be all. It's just that, we'll just see what happens. Like, and I think that people get that confused with you being passive. It's just that, I just have to make the decision based on the data that I have, but also just knowing that we can always pivot. We can always make another decision. So I think in general, it helps you get a higher level of curiosity with people instead of reacting. You're just able to say, like, well, what is the outcome that you're looking to have from this conversation? Are we on the same page when it comes to like our goals or whatever it might be? And that's personal. Do we have the same expectations? And that can go for personal and professional life. But also, I just think that you just have a peace of mind in knowing that you have personal agency. You don't have to be on autopilot. I can choose how to respond to any situation. It doesn't, I literally have choice in the life that I want to create for myself, the reality that I create for myself. So community and choice and curiosity.
Absolutely. I mean, what you're talking about is empathy, right? There's a deep level of understanding that empathy means context. Empathy means having an understanding of someone else's perspective by decentering yourself
Yeah.
from the situation.
Yep.
And when we decenter ourselves from the situation, we're able to get curious because now we're not in a space of
Mm.
having to defend ourselves. We're not responding from a place of you attacked my ego or you attacked my dignity or my integrity. It's more of like, wow, okay, this person is moving through the world from a place where they clearly lack trust with.
Mhm.
And so their response is coming from this place. Now, my choice is, how do I want to respond to them? And what of their story do I want to kind of like latch onto versus let it just slide off?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And empathy is I think you summed it up perfectly. Like empathy is so important. And I think today we just suffer from a lot of main character syndrome. Like like it's just like this world, social media, like we just suffer from a lot of main care. Like everybody's watching me. Like it's just like, no, they're not. No, they're not. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
And it's okay, and that's okay. But the people that care, that's all that matters. And so that's why it goes back to that empathy and community, right? You get a lot of empathy from your community. So just making sure like whatever you're doing, you're telling the people that actually matter to you. And so yeah, empathy. That is something that I've always gotten a lot of good feedback on when it came to like interviews that I was in, or just people that empathy. Because I I just believe like since going back to just being a child and just always observing people, I just would ask questions and just like, well, why did you do it that way? Or what would you do differently? Like I didn't say much, where I was always asking questions. And I found that people got a lot of value out of that. Like it wasn't like, well, maybe you should do this, especially because the people that would open up to me and
Yeah.
just talk to me were like 10 years, 15 years older than me. So it's some respect that like I assume that you don't know more than me. Because you're older than me. So yeah, it's
I
just
always say
it,
that, I always say that a lot of our emotional like rage that we may have, or that, recognizing the emotional response or reaction that we have,
mhm,
a lot of it can be answered by asking questions, because a lot of the stories that we build are leading to having these very feisty response and emotional reactions.
uh-huh,
And if we asked questions, I did a whole episode on assumptions, because I can't tell you how much it gets under my skin. I do it too, so I get under my own skin, but like it's just it really is. I mean, and right, like biologically, human wise, it our brain does it on for a purpose. Our brain does it so that it can categorize things and move, and our brain is all about efficiency, right? So that's where, but those stories that we build, it and what you mentioned about relationships and community, it's that those assumptions, those not realizing that you have choice in how you respond to those emotions can sever relationships that you felt so close to at one point, right?
mhm,
Your own experience of having parents that just cut you and your sister off. I mean, I can imagine how painful that must have been, because it doesn't matter how old we get. Our parents, there's this validation that we just feel and want from them. But once we are able to recognize even that relationship, we're able to kind of find some peace with it. But regardless, I'm, I share all this, and I'm sharing all this because I'm so curious that after you, went through Vipassana, you've done all this work, you continue to do this work. How do you then help your clients and people that come to you find that same path for themselves, especially very high performers, individuals that maybe at C-suite executives, and they have that same mentality of emotions are going to slow me down, they weaken my decisions. I can't have empathy. That's just going to make every decision I make soft. It's going to become a liability. And how do you help them from your journey, help them see that what they're doing, the path that they're going on, it's like they're just being a hamster on a wheel, and it's that same idea as, you know, what's that saying where it's like you can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. It's like repetition of madness.
and expecting a different result. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I do what I've always done, and that's just kind of be a mirror. Like one of the questions that I ask most people, it's a very basic question. It's not profound. I think that when founders or people that I work with here, it's just like, oh, I never thought about that. I just ask like, who are you outside of your accomplishments? And the reason
So
why
hard for people to answer that.
it's just who are you? Like what defines you? And that question is so important because as people try to like stumble their way through the question, it's usually like, well, I'm a CEO, I'm a manager, I'm a VP, I'm an executive at this company. I'm like, you don't own those things, right? Like those things. Well, the CEO, yes, you own that. But also just understanding that, like what's the story? Like what's your story when somebody comes up to talk to you? And if you're leading with professional journey, in my opinion, it's just like, I don't know how much work has been done there. And I guess when it comes to being a mirror, sometimes people don't always hear themselves as clearly as they think they do. For example, I had a client and she finally decided to take care of herself. And what I mean by that is that I was just like, she was working really, really hard. She's a consultant. She was working really, really hard. And she was looking for this recognition. She was looking for this promotion. She's trying to design her life in a way to where like work isn't a priority, but she's always putting work above everything. So much so that it was detrimental to her health and that she had to go to the doctor. And I was worried about her. I know I'm not supposed to take like personal responsibility, but it's just I'm a human. So it's just like I was really worried about her. And she for some reason could not get over the mental block of putting her health before her work. Like she was just like, I don't know why I'm treating myself like this. And we just got curious about that. And throughout that conversation, I was just able to raise a mirror to her, like, well, who do you want to be? Like, who do you want to be for yourself? I always ask who questions, mainly because I think why doesn't get at the root of where we actually want to go or who we want to be. I think who comes first, because my belief is that who you are is always evolving. Who is needed in the moment as a leader, as a business owner, as a executive, whoever it might be, that's always evolving no matter what the situation is. And then we can get to the why. But when you're able to clearly tell me like who you are or who you would like to be and how you're getting there, then that's how I know like, okay, you're doing the work. Like now I can actually be that partner with you in whatever transformation you're trying to make. So it's always the question of who are you outside of your accomplishments. That's how I'm able to actually understand if somebody's actually wants to do the work or what is the work that needs to be done. And then from there, we can talk about the why, the how, the what, all these different things, but who is so important today because I just think that first main character syndrome plays a big role in today's society and thinking that we're a lot more important than we are, or we have to do things that we don't necessarily want to do. But also just having choice in picking who you want to be is so important. Like that
Yeah.
choice and like, this is who I want to be. Okay. Are you actually doing the things right now to work towards that? Nope. All right. Let's do some work. Let's actually put in the work. Do you want to do the work? Yes. Okay. Let's do it. Understanding the who is so important. I think that's how I've been able to have success with my clients and that understanding the who, not just the why. Why is easy. The who is a lot harder.
I think that's really important because you're right. We learn about the power of why. Obviously, Simon Sinek made a whole thing out of it, and it's
Yeah.
fantastic that there's a why, the motivating why there. But 100% that if you don't know who is behind that why, it can take us into a path where I know this has happened to me, where I built a business that I hated. And the why has never changed. The why has been unwavering in terms of what it is that motivates me to what I want to create.
Uh-huh.
But the version of who I was to build what I was doing created a business that I really didn't like. And it took me the last 2, 3 years to unshed that and to step into this version. And I'm still stepping into it. But from what I take from like everything that you shared, it really is that in order for us to not respond and react and create stories in our head, when we understand who we are and we're not being validated by these external things, or putting so much energy into the external validation, because we're human, we do need some form of external validation. But because we know our who so well, things become easier to make a decision. It becomes easier to say like, yeah, that's not going to work for me, or like, no, I'm gonna do the playbook a little differently. Brian, I have one final question for you. If you were to reframe for the listeners a perspective on what success really means and looks like, what is that reframe?
Basically, what we've been saying, success is what you choose for it to be. It all depends on just who you want to be. Like, that's the simple way that I can put it. I just think that in this life, there comes a time where you just have to make a very clear decision on, this is what's enough for me. And that will help you understand, all right, how am I going to grow into that person? Or how am I going to grow into that version of myself? What are the necessary people, or just resources in general, time, money, people that need to be around me in order to grow into that version that I'm aspiring to be? But this life is filled with choice. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. I just think that success is what you choose for it to be.
I love that. I love that so much. And I love that, it's so true. We have choice in what we want it to be. We have choice in how we want to engage. And if we put choice first
Hmm.
and recognize our relationship to all of this, we can live a life that is actually untethered.
Uh-huh.
And, I appreciate that so much, Brian. Thank you so much. I want our listeners to know, where can they find you, where they can connect with you, how can they work with you?
Yes. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Bryant C. Alexander Jr., and you can check out my website, reframecc.com.
Fantastic, Brian. I could talk to you for so much longer about all of these things, but appreciate you coming on and sharing your personal transformation, your personal journey in just your relationship with emotions and expression. I'm so glad that you did find your way out and to share yourself, because you do not belong in the back seat. You definitely belong in the front seat. So thank you for being here.
Appreciate that, Doc. I appreciate that so much.
I really hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I just have one favor to ask you. If you could just make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a rating and review, it's going to help us tremendously to make sure that we reach as many people as possible that you think should be listening to our episodes. I'll see you next week for another episode, and thank you so much for leaving that one review, that one subscription, and sharing this with your friends.